Issie Barratt, and I'm the Artistic Director of the National Youth Jazz Collective. If you've been watching these shows, you'll be all joining in like a chorus with the opening, because I do tend to say the same thing, but it's the same open heart and great greeting for all of you. Really glad that you're here with us. Today's a very special day because we have two parts to this conversation. First of all, we will be inviting some of the young musicians and their tutors to talk, and then we're focusing after that on the undergraduate and postgraduate jazz courses at the conservatoires. For those of you that have already tuned in, you may well remember that we had a conversation with Nick Smart and Jeremy Price last week from the Royal Academy of Music and the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. And then we've got four other heads department. I don't want to steal their thunder, so I will introduce them shortly. But first of all, Nick, how's it going? Come and join us, our program manager. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm still alive. I think we're absolutely thriving this week. It's fantastic to see how the week is going and how everyone's making a lot of progress and how we've got technology behind us and still being able to make absolute strides with it.
And I think the thing that you and I are now realizing is because we put things together not knowing anything, because we've never done anything like this before. And we've done 12 years of the same model. And now suddenly we're new platform. And as you know, and many of the people that are here with us today who've been working with us in the lead up, you know, as well as there being great creative intent, there's also been anxiety of wondering if things are going to work. But you're also anticipating how things are going to work. And I've just discovered things I never knew I was going to experience going around the groups. I've discovered that there's still that sense of camaraderie, even though people aren't physically in the same room. They really enjoy meeting each other and hearing each other play. And I've also discovered that there's a real magic and a different, unique vibe from each of the groups. Each combo has still developed its own personality. And I've also incredibly impressed with the tutors, how they have developed, again, very bespoke and unique ways of working online. So I'm really looking forward to inviting a couple of the tutors to join me in a minute. But Nick, I know you've been sitting there like the Wizard of Oz, ground control. Has it been a satisfying experience to date? We're on day 4, day 5 tomorrow. No, we're on day 5 now.
We're on day 5, I think. Starting on a Sunday is throwing us all off. But yeah, it's like the Starship Enterprise here. There's so many devices. I think on one day, I think about 4 or 5 devices were going off at the same time, but that's been part of the fun. Definitely the challenges with technology, it's all just trying to make them all work and be successful with that. That's been part of it. So we've just accepted the challenge.
Well, if you could now beam up the first of the 3 guests or 4 guests, I think we're going to, first of all, we're going to welcome one of our tutors and a couple of his students. Could you beam up, please, Jason Yard? And I think, Jason, you're going to introduce your 2 fellow band members as well. Are you there, Jason?
I'm there.
Woohoo!
Oh, hold on. What's going on there? Yeah.
Hi, Jason. How you doing?
How you doing? I'm all right. How you doing?
Very good. And I
Nice
have
to
to
see you.
say, I'm just really impressed with, you know, there is a sense of a great occasion happening. It's no longer in a handbook and a template of a timetable, but there's such a fantastic personalities and music developing, and I can see how to take things forward. And I'm just wondering if you might welcome your 2 students to join us, and then if you might sort of tell us a bit about the highlights of your week so far as a group. You've been doing lots of different things.
Yeah, I mean it's been a learning curve for everybody, and the 2 people who I'm about to introduce have taken. I mean, my group has been fantastic, I have to say, but these 2 individuals have taken a particular strength in relishing, I think, this kind of online opportunity and getting into the whole kind of production aspect of it. And they are Ben Goodman and Ursula Harrison.
Brilliant. So Ben and Ursula, come and join us. We'd love to hear. Obviously, I've been around. Hello, lovies. Nice to see you. I've been around sneaking in and sneaking out to listen. And then we've also worked together as well. We had a mock session where you experienced what it was like to actually be a session musician in the real. So, Jason, how did you come up with the programme of repertoire? So your connection with the group is to have chosen repertoire for the combo to play.
Well, as you know, you always come up with a nice theme for each summer school, and this year it was folk, which is you know, I love that. I don't know who said it, but that quote of you know, all music is folk music because folk got to play it. So in that context, I thought, well, I'm going to go as wide as I can. So I picked some songs from my Guyanese heritage, some South African music, some music from the Solomon Islands, and a couple of things from England, you know. So I tried to get a nice spread of, you know, as much folk music as possible, basically.
And so Ben and Ursula, how did it feel when that email came through with the list of repertoire? And as we say, we always put links in so that you can hear it online. Did you think, I think I've got the wrong summer school here. This can't possibly be the National Youth Jazz Collective. How did it feel, Ben?
Yeah, well, I listened to it, and yeah, it is kind of versatile, isn't it? It's kind of, there's a lot of different influences there. I just got really into some of the English stuff that we received, like the Eliza Carthy band and stuff like that. It was just so, oh man, like the YouTube video, seeing her play it live with her band was really, really inspiring, I found. And yeah, and when I heard that, I just got really excited about all the repertoire.
What I liked about the video, because I was watching all of the repertoire recently as well, just to recap, is that it really pays off to watch the video, doesn't it? Because of the way that she's playing and directing as she plays. It's such, you know, her whole performance is so physical, so that she's communicating to the whole in her whole band. And I wondered if that made you reconsider about your own role within an ensemble.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, yeah, as being a pianist, we always have that problem where we're kind of sat down and less visible. I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. I guess there's a lot of thinking to do about how you can perform in this day and age when technology is involved and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, stay on mic. Don't need to keep remuting, because otherwise you'll be in and out, and we'd just like to have a little conversation between the three. Same with us. That's lovely. Ursula, I'm wondering, how did you then address the challenge of how to record that, or the tracks that you were learning? Because I know there's been quite a lot of sort of production going on, and particular members of the band also really enjoying that production side. So might you, for the viewers, explain first of all who we brought in to support you on that side? Because obviously Jason is an expert producer and does a lot of work, but we thought to support Jason, it was too much to have Jason do everything, MD and produce. So who was the producer that you were working with?
So we were working with Olga Fitzroy, and we had a session with her today, actually. So what we've been doing is we've chosen 3 of the pieces, and Jason, Ben, and I are each producing one of them.
Wow.
Vaguely.
That's fantastic.
So we sent over the Logic file to Olga, and she kind of took what Ben had already done, and then kind of put her magic on it, really. And we got to watch her do that and take all the tips and ask questions about what she was doing. Yeah.
Did that influence the way you think that people were shaping the music, sort of working in that way, rather than just counting things off? Don't worry. Rather than just counting things off and playing as an ensemble in the room? Or was everybody sort of trying to emulate what you would be doing in the room? Like, for example, were people getting obsessed with doing lots of solos because, you know, you've got the opportunity to keep doing take after take?
Well, no, that's the thing, actually. Yeah, I was kind of surprised that people were, I thought they might be more kind of self-centered in the sense that they'd want some solos. They'd have more time to focus on getting their own part perfected, but actually they just really wanted to contribute to the overall sound. So
Right.
I made kind of like a piano guide track, and I put the melodies in, the counter melodies, and harmonized those, and then chords and rhythm with a metronome, and sent it all out, and everyone just immediately started picking apart the little kind of quiet harmony. And my dog is going.
Shows that it's live. I love it. It must have been like sort of working online. Has it felt strange, or do you feel that there is a sense of group and a sense of shared ownership?
Yeah, no, I think it's really nice. I've been continually bouncing on Logic. It's really nice that you can just instantly bounce everything you do. So I've been like exporting the MP3s and just keep sending them to the chat and just say, oh, this is how it sounds so far. Can you hear that bit? Should we do that tiny bit again or something? And then, people just send it straight back. And it took me so long to try and get people to actually send their solos, because they were so obsessed with sending like the little chord tones and the harmonies.
Brilliant. So Jason, as we're now on our penultimate day, you feel that mission will be accomplished, going back to the Starship?
For sure,
Prize?
for sure, yeah.
In
And
what way?
I mean, it's funny because, you know, as much as we set out to do a particular thing at the beginning of the week, and, you know, from day one, you know, technology can be a hindrance or an advantage. And I mean, in some ways, you know, with hindsight, if I'd known we were going to run into some of the problems, I would have just bypassed that bit anyway and just gone for what we've actually ended up doing, which has been really great, you know. But you know, it's been good to go through the process, and you know, by and large, everyone has rode the teething problems very well.
So when we first decided to go online, Michael Price was one of the first people I went to, because he knows me very well and because he works in the studio a lot and writing for TV. And I said that it's really important that our end product retains that silver thread that we're all connected by of creativity, and that we find a way of not just bringing it online, but finding that silver thread within the online. And did you feel satisfied at the end of it all, do you think? Would you come back again? Online?
I know I would.
Yeah, Jason. Yeah, you
Oh,
would.
I would for sure. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been, you know, you know, I've always had that split thing of production versus playing, you know, and writing as well. You know, I'd say it's that thing of constantly spinning the plates. And I'm not gonna lie, as I get older, the gigs I can do while sitting in the comfort of my living room, I get to appreciate much more, especially while my family's away and it's just me and the cat. So that's you know, I have to make the most of it.
Well, they'll be back with you tomorrow. So I'm going to round up with this group and wish you, Jason, well, wish your family well as well.
Thank you.
And Ben and Ursula, really hope that you have a great last day. I'm going to see you in the main assembly as well. But for now, can we please thank Jason, Ben and Ursula for talking about your group. Thank you, lovies.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Nice one.
Bye.
Bye. And
See
so
ya.
we've got one other tutor we've invited to join us. Thanks a lot, Jason, who's going to also talk to us about what's been happening with the combo and sort of the magical threads that we can still create by using Zoom, because so many people are frustrated with latency. And so, Mark, I'm going to invite you to the stage. Mark Hodgson, please, because you, I think, have got some wonderful news of sharing how to still be creative while we're using Zoom, so not even any other platform. Can I hand over to you, and might you introduce your band and what it is you're going to share with us?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Let me introduce the people from my band. I mean, the band's bigger than this in reality, but we wanted to do a vignette of some of the stuff we'd recorded. So we've chosen the people who recorded yesterday to come and do a little a tune for you later. So we have Greg May on piano, Matt Cooper on trombone.
Hello, Greg. Hello, Matt.
There.
Hello.
David Harkness on drums, and Joe Garland Johnson on guitar.
Hello.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So in terms of Zoom, yeah, well, I mean, I embarked on this hoping that we would be able to play simultaneously. I hadn't had much experience of trying to play simultaneously on Zoom, but it proved difficult. But I mean, because of the musicality, of good humour and supportiveness and flexibility of all the musicians involved in my group, we've managed to cobble something together. I think we've had a bit of fun. We have 5 minutes a day where we decide on our favourite condiment or beverage or cake or biscuit, and that's been interesting. Dave's chosen a few strange ones, but other than that, we've had fun. And the music's, I think we've maintained that relationship we would have if we were all in one room, and that's crucial, as you're referring to. That's at the sort of very centre of why we get together as musicians.
Absolutely. And
so I think we've managed that, yeah.
Oh, good, because it's something that was really, you know, it was the epicenter of what I wanted to achieve, but it was also the biggest worry, because I wanted us to come away feeling that we'd had an authentic shared group as much in the moment as we could, but also for the audience, just before I hand back to Mark, that we're also, you know, working this week together with the intent to meet in the next term, because now the restrictions have been lifted, and we're lucky that we're non-ets, and so that's a nice size that we can get together. And with working with Olga, who's been an expert working with the government, she's been on their advisory panel about how to get people working, and the recording studios are up and running now, so it's a good model to follow. So our intent is to get each combo individually at different times, get the 9 together to play, and then do a live stream in the evening or at the end of the session. So are we going to share something musically now, Mark, or are we going
if we may,
yeah,
we're raring to go with like a coiled spring.
Brilliant.
Raring to go. Yeah. So basically, the brief was jazz and folk, and some connection between the two. So we came up. Izzy and I came up with a list, and you wanted. Oh, we talked about having some jazz elements too, obviously, as well as just pure folk. This is a tune by the American pianist Keith Jarrett, who obviously has sort of folk, certainly a strong folk element to his music. Now you'll see that not everyone is playing simultaneously. We're doing some clever kind of ins and outs and playing together and playing alone, and hopefully we're going to regale you with this tune that's called So Tender. Over
Thank
to
you.
Brilliant, guys. Fantastic. Thank you. So you can imagine what a pleasure it's been to work with these people. So I'll hand back to Issie and see you all soon. Thanks.
That was knockout. That was so good. Oh, my whole soul feels like it's been fed. Thank you so much, everybody. Bravo. See you soon. See you tomorrow. Well done. Amazing. So, what a great way to start the conversation. And that's feeding of the soul is something that you'll come across during the rest of this evening, because the 5 guests that we've got who are going to be talking to us are very used to working in an environment that's nurturing and inspirational and creative, and feeding of the soul is part of the remit, and all of them are excellent world leaders. So what I'd like to do is first of all, I'd like to welcome the entire panel individually to the stage, and then we'll open up some of the questions. I'm hoping that people that are watching will be very animated and start to run to the Facebook and ask questions, because this is a particular topic that's of importance. So that we're going to now be talking about the auditions to go to conservatoire, and I know that some people are particularly anxious about things. And don't be shy and don't hold back with the questions. We will address everything that's sent through. Nick is going to forward them through chat, and I'll chair the conversation. So if you've got anything during the course of the next 35 minutes that you'd like to ask, please do put it into Facebook. So without further ado, one by one, we'll welcome to the stage. So first, I'm going to go from the extreme north and gradually work my way down. So first of all, from the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, please could we welcome Tommy Smith, OBE, Dr. Tommy Smith. Hi, nice to see you. And we're going to be doing some examining together on Monday, and I must download the links to the videos, so I shall do that tomorrow. Yes. You've prompted me, and I've really enjoyed that side of things. So thank you so much, Tommy, for asking me for the last 2 years. Now we've been working together on the exams.
It's been great having you. The students have really enjoyed your presence and your ebulliency and effervescence and, you know, spark and all that. So it's been great having you.
Thank you so much. Then we move a little further down. We'll be talking in a moment. We've got from the Leeds College of Music. I think there might have been a rebranding. So Jamil, I'm sure, will correct me. Welcoming Jamil Sheriff. Hi, are you in Leeds at the moment?
Is it? Yeah, I'm in Leeds at the moment. So we've just got back from our family holiday. So we're in quarantine at the moment, which is all right. It's nice to be back one way or another.
Where did you go? Was it abroad?
We went to France.
Oh, you got caught in that.
And we got caught in that, but we had a good time. So
good. Welcome back.
It was worth it. Yeah, thanks.
We had a good time as well.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me along.
Thanks for joining us. And then we're going to go down and then to the left a bit. We're going to go to Wales, to Cardiff. I'm going to welcome, do stay with us, Jamil. And I'm going to welcome Paula Gardner. Hello,
Hi,
Paula.
everyone.
How are you doing? It's really funny when everybody's on gallery, because I'm waving to you all and then you think, why is she going over there? Like, you don't know where you're positioned. I should stay on camera. Hi, Paula. And again, I had the great pleasure of doing external examining for 4 years with you and had a wonderful time. And it was so great to see how the course developed as well, because I think you'd gone into a new building and you'd sort of expanded slightly. So it was really great to see that blossom. And I think our next guest has also been doing some examining for you as well. But how are you doing, Paula?
Yeah, da iawn, diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much.
Croeso. No, you're welcome. Very good, thanks, Izzy. It's lovely to see you again.
Have you been away at all, or have you stayed in Wales?
No, I've just been in Wales right the way through, actually. Haven't been anywhere. Wasn't quite as brave as Jamil.
Well, I'm going to ask the next head of department from the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and let's see how brave our dear friend Malcolm Edmonstone. Have you been on holiday yet,
Malcolm? Have I been on holiday? No, I don't think college is finished yet.
Really? So what?
It's kind of still going on, you know. Yeah. There's so much, and now we're getting excited about the new people. New friends joining in September. So no, I haven't really been away, Izzy, but I get out on my bike and go swimming and stuff. So it's all right, you know, staycation, like they say.
I'm wondering over the sort of the summer term and now over the summer, because different conservatoires have sort of dealt with the end of year recitals situation differently. Wondered if we could go around and just see how that's been managed. So at the Guildhall, what decision did you make for the end of year recitals?
Well, we wanted to have optionality, of course, so there were 2 things that could be chosen between, but I was really keen that people didn't have to kind of sit around not making music, because I was feeling myself as a musician that like you could see the lockdown was going to be, you know, quite grim if you don't get the opportunities to play like your fantastic students just did. That was so brilliant. So option one was that we would they would prepare their charts and arrangements as usual, like you would if it was a live performance, and then they sent them in, and we then like put a team of players, recording musicians together that record at home or have facilities. And we had this crazy kind of workflow that my colleague Jules Jackson magnificently managed, because he's got one of those brains that understands logistics, and it was amazing. So we had, like, everyone could have 3 players, and you know, usually a rhythm section of some sort, but some people had, you know, we had frontline and vocalists involved as well, but every student essentially got to like put their set together, and then we recorded them and then sent them back the tracks, and then they recorded their bit. So we did 255 of those, which was pretty full on. And then some people, of course, deferred their recitals, because naturally the live experience is, you know, something that's incredibly hard to replace. But
was that an option? They could choose between doing it that way and deferring the recital.
Yeah, that's right. A lot, you know, it was. I think it was about 60-40 in favor of recording. So it was a lot of people went for the recorded submission, and you know, I think it's about engagement, isn't it? Because it's so difficult. We're all in amazing routines and blessed to be busy and everything, but when that disappears, it's I don't know, you can feel a bit guilty about spending time on music, or lack the I'm talking about myself really, like lack the focus unless I've got specific projects. So I think it enabled a lot of people to kind of crack on.
You've enjoyed
as close to business as usual, or the new usual.
So I wondered, because obviously we will talk about the programs and the auditions, but wondered, it would be really lovely just very briefly to hear from Jamil and Tommy and Paula about how they've addressed the end of year recitals. So Jamil, what did you do in Leeds? Did you do live or recorded?
Yeah, we went for recorded assessments in the end. There's quite a lot of our students, and I think the outgoing year, there's about 60 of them or something like that. So I think with the unknown of, you know, how possible it was going to be to facilitate live recordings in September, we decided to go down the recorded route. And our students, they're sort of engaged in the production side of things as kind of an integrated part of the course anyway. So a lot of them have got that together if they've chosen those options, and it seemed to go all right. You know, I think, like Malcolm was saying, you know, with our own projects, we all had a sort of steep learning curve of, you know, crikey, how can we continue to make music together? And yeah, the students seem to be ahead of the game with that. They quickly got on with it, and, you know, we're putting some incredible stuff up on Facebook and what have you, social media. And I guess, you know, one of the difficulties we have, you know, at the final recital, students often, they make something that, you know, they want to capture that, and they would like to record it, and they'd like to put it out there and stuff, and that can be difficult with examination rules and what have you. And this was sort of the other way around. They were making music to put out there, and then going, actually, that had a really good response on my Facebook page. I'm going to use that as part of my exam, which is, you know, it's probably a learning curve for us, because it felt like that was the right way around, you know, and it'd be good to bring that into the live kind of setting as well.
So Tommy, how are you feeling now? Because I think we've just got 2 videos left to watch, but we've finished most of the batch. How was it? Could you maybe explain how you dealt with the final recitals, but also how it might have influenced you for sort of looking into the next term and the future coming year?
Well, you very much know how it went, because you saw all of them, apart from 2. But we started with video, I think back in April or something. We started doing that immediately with all our repertoire classes. And some of the students who were actually living together in apartments would play together. So there would be duos and trios. There'd be a lot of play-alongs, some actually just playing solo. But for the recitals, they were already geared up to putting their videos unlisted on YouTube and, you know, trying to pace out their improvisations, because when they play with play-alongs, the solos are like 5 minutes long and were a bit longer than they were used to. But I think it's been a learning process for most of them, but you know, it's a difficult time, and I've been talking with a lot of them socially recently about how they're making a living, and some of them have gone into clothing, some of them have gone into recording adverts for Dove and, you know, chocolate desserts in Germany and all that stuff. There was only one student who couldn't participate in the recitals, and that was a Spanish student who didn't have a drum kit. And he had presented most of his repertoire stuff on pots and pans from his kitchen. So equally musical, but he didn't feel like it was, you know, the right level for his final recital. So he's the only one who's late. But everyone has played well. They're practicing a lot, and they're still forming relationships, albeit through Facebook and the social media, but they, you know, they're ahead of most of us older gray types. So my hat is off to them for bearing down with this this period in our lifetime.
And do you feel it's a means to an end, what happened, or is there that thread of creativity that's sort of come online with them?
Well, you know, when you're young, and if you remember when you were young, money wasn't important. You played because you wanted to play. You would sleep on people's floors in middle of here, and you play anywhere. And so they're all about the music. For us grown-ups, it's very different. And I think because music is regarded as a kind of utility now, it's very difficult for me to see a future for a lot of musicians who just want to play music, period. And that's where I have trouble with the whole aesthetics of teaching and also performing, because why should we teach people to perform in an arena which has a lot of dead ends? And so we have to really open up the opportunities as wide as possible, because to make it in this world, you don't just have to be a musician, you have to be a multitude of things. So, you know, it's tough, and we're all hoping that it's going to end soon, you know.
Yeah, and it relatively is, it's only 4.5 months, so it's also early days in a very profound shift. So it's kind of, we're trying to catch up with ourselves. And so I think to be continued is kind of the answer at the moment, isn't it, Tommy?
Yeah, and it's also important that people who are playing together via Zoom, that they don't really focus on synchronicity. They have to also play with the delay. So if there is delay in the music, they should use that as part of the music. So if it's not in sync, and it can't be in sync, well, use what you have, and that way you can create something a little bit different. So that's an important point. But you know, onwards, upward spiral.
So Paula, what have you all been doing? Thanks, Tommy. What have you been doing for the end of year recitals in Cardiff?
Well, I think pretty much as everybody else has been. I mean, you know, we all had to make decisions very, very quickly. So, I mean, if you'd asked me in the second week of March what we would be doing by the beginning of June, and then what we would be doing now, I mean, I wouldn't have believed you. But essentially, for our assessments, we as a college decided to complete everybody's work on the same timescale as they would have without the lockdown. And I must say, I mean, the response from the students was just incredible. And, you know, not just in the final recitals, but also in other tasks where they had to maybe send in the presentations, where, you know, people produced beautiful movies with slides and visuals and voiceovers and music over. I mean, really, you know, stunning work. And I think the same was true with the end of year recitals. As Malcolm said, some people opted to have an accompaniment track made for them. Other people designed their own backings. A lot of them were, with this particular module for the fourth years, a lot of them were doing one of our modules, Jazz for the 21st Century. So I said, well, you know, why not take that a little bit further and, you know, make those electronic backing tracks and, you know, use the fact that you're not going to be there with your regular rhythm section. You know, what would you do with the music otherwise? And I think some of the results were absolutely stunning. I mean, actually, Malcolm, you've seen some of those.
I can absolutely testify to that, Paula. There's some great performances. It's been so interesting.
You doing external exam this year?
Yeah, this is my fourth year, so I've absolutely loved it, and it's so interesting to work together and to see, you know, how another course runs, and to meet other students. And you realize, you know, we say this all the time, but it's such a small world, isn't it? You know, jazz education, it's so niche already. And it's so, and, you know, because we're all so busy at our own institutions, you don't always get the kind of big view that you get when you're an external. It was absolutely brilliant.
Well, I've got some questions that have come in, and I thought rather than just go through each of the courses and explain them, I thought some of that might come out from the questions, because I just looked down the side and there are quite a few coming in from the young musicians. And then because I know all the courses really well, if I feel we will between us spot areas that have been missed through the questions, and then we can fill those gaps. So if I may, if we could first maybe start with Jamil first of all. How much does making a good impression, and we'll pass this question round, how much does making a good impression in an audition matter when it comes to you as a college, so head of department, deciding whether to let someone onto your course or not?
That's a really good question. I think, you know, it's attitude is really important. And that's going to be one of the challenges, I think, for us as an institute, looking at auditions for next year, how we kind of glean that information when we're going to be doing auditions online, because we're having to streamline the face-to-face education next year, which means we're not going to have reading weeks and in the same way. So we won't have those gaps in the timetable where we would normally invite students in for auditions. So everything's going to have to be done from an audition point of view online. But we do that anyway with international students. So we've got a series of questions that we ask, and they submit kind of an interview section of their audition videos, where we, you know, ask about influences and passions and how they collaborate with other musicians and things that are sort of important to us as an institution. And that section of the international interviews that we run in that way at the moment is, you know, it's really important we go straight to those videos, if I'm honest. And yeah, so
Do a similar thing now with everybody, do you think? Just same requirement, or will you have a live interview online at some point?
We've not completely made our minds up. If I'm honest, we're just making those plans at the moment. So I think, you know, we had somewhere in the region of 250 applicants last year, and so and not all of those applicants turned up for their interviews, and we didn't expect them all to turn up, you know, for their interviews. So it's going to be about whether or not we can actually facilitate kind of Zoom conversations with each applicant. I think it will depend on how many entries we get, how many applications we get, but it's going to be there. I think the main thing is that we, you know, if we see a video application and we can make the assessments we feel confident that we can make the assessment based on what's in front of us, then that's fine. If there's any area, any grey area, then we'll have to find a way of either meeting with the applicant online or potentially going out to visit them or bringing them into the building at a quiet time, you know, and we have to make sure that this process doesn't disadvantage any applicant in any way. So I think it's about being flexible, you know, so to say that we're just going to do everything online or that we're going to Zoom every student, I don't think it's going to work like that. I think, you know, it'll be a case by case sort of.
Right. So Tommy, I'm just thinking same sort of question, but maybe we could expand it a little bit, because I think what a lot of the youngsters don't appreciate is that there are decisions made based on potential, you know, and sort of a hunch. It's not always necessarily that someone's come in and played burningly. So Tommy, how important is the impression in the audition of the interview, but also do you want someone that's fully formed?
Well, yeah, we've been doing recorded auditions for 5-6 years now, and back then we would also call them up to talk to the students. Now we just ask them to present themselves and introduce their music. And I always find that the musicians from the Far East are really great at that. They introduce themselves eloquently. In fact, I think they're tutored on how to present themselves. But there are some great musicians who can't speak, they can't present themselves. So I don't think that that's completely what I would gauge someone on is how they, you know, talk in front of an audience, because some musicians are quite, you know, I mean, Kenny Wheeler for one, Tom Harrell, they certainly were quite closed off performers when it comes to presentation. But, you know, when you get to know them, they've got smiles as big as, you know, as wide as they can go. But we have a very small course, so we only have 5-6 places up for grabs. So it's really important that we choose the best improvisers. Our recital is all about improvisation. It's not about compositions or arrangements. That's done in another part of our course. So it's all about playing and improvisation. And we only make a group that evolves through the course, and that group can be any kind of instrumentation. But the videos are quite important because we ask for a certain style of song and then something that's completely their choice. And you know, if I get a video where you know the student is like this close to the camera and you see the fingers and they don't say hello and then they turn it off, you go, okay, you know, it can come across, you know, did you watch this video? How did you find it? Were you impressed with your presentation? You know, because sometimes it's just like a dark thing like this, and then they click on, and then they play, and then they click off, and you know, and I mean, they might be a great player, but
when something like that, I've had a couple of things where people have sent me a video, not necessarily an audition, and it's actually no video, and it's just like this black screen and a bit of playing and some talking, and I find it quite eerie. Gives me the heebie-jeebies. Yep. Paula,
so that's always part one of our process. We have a part two stage, which is actually you come in face to face, but we're not going to do that this time. So okay. It's just part one, and then part two will be, you know, a different stage, but it'll be on video too.
So taking that same question, but opening up it again, Paula, and then obviously as we go around, if bits get missed as we come back around again, do feel free everyone to leap in and say, oh, you know, a minute ago you were talking about. But Paula, as well as that side of things about, you know, how you present yourself and seeing potential in a player, there's also asking about, does the repertoire, so how do you decide on the selection of repertoire? So does that influence you as well? So Paula, might I hand that question to you?
I think it will do. I mean, we've always in the past we've never had set repertoire. And it's always very funny because when we go through a week of doing auditions, we try and work out what other institutions have set as their set repertoire, because we may get 48 versions of All the Things You Are or whatever. But this year we've set one piece. It's a very open brief, but it's either to do a Parker Blues or a Rhythm Changes, and then one other piece of your own choice, and it's always refreshing to get different and a new take on repertoire. Find those, you know, tunes that you haven't heard and you think, oh, it's such a great tune, it's really nice to hear that again, you know, because if somebody comes in and plays something that sparks you like that, it's just great. They're onto a winner, you know, to start with. No, so repertoire, I suppose, imagination and sort of trying to show yourself really through your choice as well. I think that's really important, because I mean, we've all talked about sort of spotting potential and sort of how you choose your material and how, you know, what you choose to show of yourself in your music, I think is really, really important. So that is, you know, something for everyone to bear in mind, is just try and be truthful, because I think we're all incredibly experienced at hearing people. And, you know, as a musician, as an improviser, you can't really hide who you are. You will always play who you are at the end of the day. And it's, you know, I think we're experienced and we can hear that. What we do and what we will be doing, because we're slightly smaller intake than Jamil, for example, we will be interviewing everybody over Zoom or Teams or Skype or whatever it might be, because that's also an important aspect for us, is to be able to talk to people in real time like we are now, have a real conversation and sort of understand who the person is, you know, as well as the musician. So that will be going ahead. So if you apply to come to Wales, you'll likely to be meeting me again, I'm afraid, but together with Hugh Warren, and so it's kind of mirroring what we would do in the live situation, because generally there's two of us on the interview panel. So
would that be same sort of time of year as normal, sort of in the Christmas term? Yes,
I believe that the dates are already up there.
Right.
It's, I think, somewhere towards the end of October. I haven't quite memorized it, but it's that. I know we're usually quite early on in the cycle. I think we all try and avoid each other, don't we? So, yeah, you know, people can do their tours.
So Malcolm, there's a specific question. So while we talk about, you know, personality and potential and repertoire, there's a specific question to the Guildhall as well. How are arrangements for face-to-face sessions going at the Guildhall?
Okay, so there's these my clever colleagues have been around the whole college, as I'm sure has happened everywhere, and sort of cross-reference it with the government guidelines so that we know exactly how many people and of which instrument type can be in a room. And there's two categories, of course. There's a different number if it's for like a seated non-performance lecture versus an actual performance thing. So we've now got those numbers. They're like that's the kind of new Bible. And we're scheduling classes around that at the moment. We published like quite a lengthy document to both returning and incumbent students that detailed, like, for each part of the course, whether there would be an element of blended learning or whether it would be face-to-face. And we've kind of ring-fenced all the things that you would expect, you know, improvisation classes and combos and all the things that, you know, despite the advances in technology, are just, you know, not really yet efficient on an ongoing basis. We gave a kind of we gave a buffer for one-to-one lessons. So we said, like, at the minimum 80% of your lessons, if you play this instrument, will be face-to-face, and there's a 20% contingency which either the student or the teacher might choose to employ. And it was 70-30 is for another category of instruments. That's the kind of worst case. But what we're finding actually is that, and I know from speaking to some of my colleagues that, you know, there are great advantages in some respects to having some online input. You know, I think particularly when it sits alongside a distinct majority of face-to-face teaching, then having a top up at a mutually convenient time, particularly if there's been an assignment set in the previous face-to-face lesson, you know, checking in, going through technical things that are farther from the kind of like hyper creative side, then, you know, there can be some advantage in that. And of course, in masterclass situations, in reaching out to people on the other side of the world, that, you know, it's very expensive to pay flights and hotels and all of that, but you can invite people into the school for a different sort of masterclass that, you know, I think we're sort of thinking, why didn't we do this before? You know,
what do you mean by blended learning? Just so that we could, because it's a hip thing that we're now saying.
Oh, yeah. So blended learning is where online provision supports face-to-face provision, and it's very much that way around. So an example might be that you had 2 of every 3 classes face-to-face, and then the third one might be a tutorial with your teacher checking up on the work that you've done and giving you sort of one-to-one feedback on your composition assignment or whatever it might be. And, you know, when you look through any of our jazz curriculums, there's certain things, you know, the closer something is to a lecture, you know, perhaps a jazz history program or something like that, that's very chalk and talk, like we say, you know, they can work even perhaps better online. And you've got the added advantage of students being able to revisit the lecture, which I think is going to be a great thing, whether or not the lecture happens in the room or is delivered online. You know, all of us building up these repositories of recorded lectures for students to be able to revisit at a later point in their study, which might be the day after or might be the year after, I think can only be a great thing.
So Tommy, I was wondering about if you could tell us about the blended face-to-face balance, and also is there hot competition for places for instruments? So have you got a set number of places that you offer per instrument?
No, this year we are well, it's not exactly 2 trios. It was 2 trios. We had one student pull out. This is the first time we're going to have 2 trios with no horn players. But last year was, you know, a typical jazz group with drums, bass, saxophone, piano, guitar. But it's not set. Sometimes we have 2 drummers, sometimes no bassists. I mean, we're kind of got a European mindset, so we're not always doing kind of American traditional jazz. But yeah, the blended learning, we've got that under control. We've been using that term for quite some time because we do a lot of Erasmus things, and tons of it is blended. And I first heard about it from some Norwegians. And I was like, what's that? What's blended learning? And now we know what it is. Everyone is going to be aware of it. And we have, our institution has signed up to Zoom. So every teacher has a free Zoom account, which is what we all voted for. We didn't quite like the Teams as much. So we kind of got our way up here in Scotland. But our program is very small. We only have about 30 students in all, with a few masters. We're quite picky, and it's a very small place, Scotland, but we used to have a great music scene, and it was made by the students. Before the school existed, we didn't really have a Glasgow jazz scene, but now it was thriving just because of the students. They created it themselves. And there's been some great players come out of Scotland. But yeah, the blended side is going to be dependent also on whether some of our teachers can come in one-to-one, face-to-face, because some teachers and some students have to, you know, be careful. I think we've only got one staff member who can't actually come in because of underlying conditions. So our one-to-one is going to be 50-50. That's 45 minutes face-to-face, 45 minutes online, because our lessons are 90 minutes long, and we have about 40.5 hours of those throughout the year. And then our history, which is divided into kind of 5 parts: transcription, we've got the listening element, the historical element, the actual performance of the historical timeline. Some of that's online, some of that's in class, of course, because we can't do, you know, early jazz playing it in synchronicity online. So we have some of that in class, but it's all mapped out, and our staff are really engaged with the technological avenues, and they're all psyched up, ready to go. But it's been an earlier kind of transformation, and I'm sure for everyone, we've done more work than we used to do. You know, like, you know, we've set up portals with online this and giving students access to have extra commentary and putting their videos here. And I mean, it's such a lot of work for our staff. I think they would have preferred to have done it face to face, because they've had to have a lot of demand on their own time, but they've not had much else to do, so they've been quite fine with it. Anyway, blended learning. Who's next?
Jamil, wondering about, do you need A-level to come and do a jazz course? Because it's a problem, and I will rotate this round as well. I know it's slightly different, because with the Scottish exam system, it's not always presuming about A-levels, because we've got the uppers as well. So, but Tommy, if somebody was not able to access music at school to that level, would you turn them away, or would there be another way of letting them come and join you?
Oh yeah, we have the other door, definitely. I mean, if the musician is very talented, we can get them in. We've got a 16-year-old trombone player came in. I just had to meet with his parents and find this other avenue, which we have at the conservatoire, and you know, we had to look after the guy. And I mean, he's already graduated, and he's a fantastic musician. But you know, we really will open all doors to let the musicians in. It's only because myself had major problems, because I left school when I was 16. I had no grades whatsoever, and I got into Berkeley with a scholarship. But that was only done because people allowed it to happen at the big table. You know, following regular guidelines, you would never get in. So I'm always very happy to open doors for anybody if they can play. So. Might
I rotate that around, and then I will come back. I've got a question for Jamil. So it's great about I think the A-level thing is particularly important, because so few schools are actually offering it. So I'm wondering, Malcolm, would you take somebody on that hasn't got A-level, or does BTEC, for example, does that work?
Oh yeah, BTEC's all good, and you know, it's two, for Guildhall music undergraduates, 2 A-levels, A2E. You know, it doesn't specify which two. So, you know, as you say, not everybody has access to A-level music, even within a 30-mile radius, you know, sadly. So, you know, it's always been the case that, of course, conservatoire auditions are as close to being about the music as possible. And, you know, as Tommy says, in the case that somebody, for one reason or another, if it's age or for any reason, doesn't have those qualifications as they are listed, then that's a conversation with registry about like whether we can you know, move forward on that front. But I've never turned away a student because I've never been in that situation where someone hasn't had the qualifications to start as an undergrad. So I think it's a very kind of pro music approach that the colleges sensibly take.
And do you have a certain number of instruments that are you looking for a certain type of instrumentation and a number of instruments?
No, not really. No, I mean we're quite a large course, and we it's weird because it tends to level out into, you know, pretty nice. You know, we might have like three 3 rhythm sections in an undergraduate year, 2 or 3, and yeah, like we obviously keep an eye on it. And you know, if someone gets a reserve place, you know, that's really important thing to say, isn't it? That I'm sure everyone would agree. Like, a reserve place is a really great thing, and it can, you know, often mature into something. So, you know, as we keep an eye on that between the offers and the very final deadline for reserve upgrades, we you know, we tend to put, you know, have sensible years, you know, that are of course manageable, but no specific instrumental quota. I was just thinking about the attitude question. You know, that first question, Izzy, like, really quickly. You know, yeah, attitude's really important, but you know, that's a two-way street. You know, like I say to students all the time, like, you know, when you walk into a conservatoire, or you virtually walk into a conservatoire and you have your meeting, you know, there's a simpatico, isn't there, between the course management and the head of the course and the staff and the students. And you know, I really do feel passionately that students, you know, when they walk into a building and they have their hour there and they revisit it and they speak to other students, you get a sense of like, wow, I want to study here or not, you know. And I can remember that as a student. I can remember feeling really excited, you know. And I think that's important, you know, to remember that we've got to exude all of that as well. And the people on the screen are real people experts, if you know what I mean.
And I always add that when I'm talking to the young musicians, that exactly that there are enough places to go around, and so that part
totally.
that you talked about is really important that you feel that, you know, you've got to have that sense of feeling at home, and there's no competition. It's just a thing, isn't it? It's just a different thing for each person fitting in. I'm going to ask, if I may, Jamil. There's a question here about whether you're going to have online open days, or will you wait until you get the signal that we can actually meet in person?
Yeah, so I think, we're going to do the online open days and the online auditions. And then, you know, it's really important that all applicants and next year's students get a chance to, like Malcolm said, come into the building and get a sense of what we're about and meet the existing students and meet the staff. And whilst we've been doing a lot of that online, and we'll continue to do that, as soon as we can get people into the building, the better. So whether or not that's going to be after Christmas or not, we'll just be, you know, watching the government guidelines and getting people, you know, into the music college as soon as we can.
Great. Paula, you know, first of all, about the instrumentation, have you got restrictions on which instruments you take?
Not particularly. Certainly not by design. I suppose one of the most unusual instruments that we've had, and we've had 3 actually, is the harp. So we've had 3 harpists, and that's been really lovely, sort of, you know, and the harp, because of the way it works, you know, for if you've got sort of really hectic bebop changes or something in your pedal, I say, what's the problem? You know, well, I've ended up in F flat. He's like, well, how have you ended up in F flat? You know, can't it just be E? But no, that it's, so anyway, that's been really interesting. And I think it's always lovely when you get some sort of interesting instrumentation. Yeah.
One of the things that your course does, and I know all the other courses do as well, but I think if I could invite you to share from the Royal Welsh perspective about the outreach work you do, that's a really important part of your programme as well, isn't it? Might you let people have a bit of an insight into how the young musicians are involved in that, and what responsibilities you give to them as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens in various places within the course, I suppose, but perhaps one of the most obvious is within the teaching skills module, which is it's a 3rd year module. And at the sort of heart of that is looking maybe not so much, or not just at instrumental one-to-one teaching, but sort of facilitating and kind of what we all do all the time. I mean, I've never thought of myself as a teacher. I've always thought of myself as a facilitator and more of a mentor, I suppose, if anything. But anyway, we get them to work on curriculum support and design workshops, which they then, yes, this is live, and the family has just gone past the bookcase.
Again.
So, yeah. But we do, yes, we design workshops. Every student will design a workshop which will tackle some part of the curriculum, so they'll study the national curriculum. And it's quite an interesting time in Wales at the moment, because we've had this thing called the Donaldson report, which means the whole of school teaching is completely changing. So it's been really interesting for the students to look at that. Anyway, so they design their workshops and then they go out and deliver those workshops in small teams. And that's great fun. And normally we do another little project called Winter Jazz, where we all prepare some seasonal material and go out into the local schools and
brilliant,
have a bit of a play. I don't think it's going to be quite the same in the next 3 months or so, but let's hope we can, you know, at least start to get into schools. And we're looking at sort of bringing digital learning and now being able to do more expanded group sessions within our teaching skills program. So watch this space.
Well, before I'm going to invite everybody to talk a little bit more about future, and I'm going to leave a question for everybody to think about. The question that we'll come back to is, do you think teaching at conservatoire might change for good, or might we go back to normal? But while the four of you have a think about that, I'd like to welcome another member of our team to the stage. Could we welcome, please, Dr. Kathy Dyson? Hello.
Hello, how are you? How are you all? Nice to see you.
Hi.
Hey, nice to see you. How are you doing? Long time no see.
The reason I've saved you to the end for our best kept secret is because you are one of the tutors on the summer school, and I think sometimes it's making that connection, which is that you also have been and continue to be external examiner for a lot of the conservatoires. Might you talk a little bit about that role, and then also if you could support me in what I was saying earlier on about, you know, there are enough places to go around, and there is that need to really what suits you, not just always what do I have to do to get in, but finding yourself, because it's a long journey and it's the beginning of a very important journey. Over to you, Kathy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose the role of the external examiner is like a critical friend, really. I mean, we all know each other, as Malcolm was saying, we all know each other across the conservatoires. Everybody works together. It's a tiny little world of jazz educators, really. I mean, committed jazz educators that love it and do it because they love it and love teaching and all the rest of it. And so it's like, yeah, so the role of examiner is like critical friend. So basically we're trying to, well, there are some kind of academic standards that have to be adhered to, obviously, in terms of, you know, making sure that student achievement is sort of measured against outcomes that have been set, making sure that assessment is fair, making sure everybody understands what the, you know, what the standards are, and what the students, making sure the students understood what they were to start with. Making sure individual instrumental teachers understand what the, you know, what the standards are, and also across institutions as well. So, you know, making sure that there's a standard for a jazz degree and an MA and all the rest of it. And also my thing, because I did my PhD in learning in jazz improvisation, I was always interested in good practice and best practice and interesting practice in learning improvisation from lots of different approaches. So I was always interested in that and in helping people to improve it and in, you know, that kind of thing. And then there's a whole lot of academic administration stuff that you don't want to know about. But basically supporting colleagues to make it better for everybody. You know, finding out how, I mean, it's always lovely. It's always a delight to go and see the final recitals and see the work that students are doing with teachers, see the work that other teachers do, because obviously your jazz education teams are utterly committed to making sure that you do the best that you can and you improve and that you become that amazing jazz musician that you want to be. So I think everybody here and everybody in all conservatoires saying Nick's not, I know Nick Smart's not here from the academy, and that was the place that I did my recent external examining, but he's totally committed to it, and all the teachers there are. So really you're in safe hands. It's a bit like here, you know, in the National Jazz Collective, you're in safe hands. And you're with people that really care about it. It's not like other courses where they may not, or they're slightly, people really care about it. So yes, in terms of it's a bit like going for a job, you know. you're also interviewing them. So when you go to your interview, make sure that you're going to a place that you really like, because they have got distinctly different identities, the conservatoires, and they do different things, and there's a different vibe. Yeah, you have to find out which one is best for you, really, and engage what is best for you, and you have to remember that. Somebody told me that years ago. When you go to an interview, you're also interviewing the person who's interviewing you and finding out whether you like them and whether it's right for you, because sometimes it isn't.
Absolutely.
But you have to be wary of that. Yeah.
Like we say, it's the beginning of we're on that journey now, so it's an important part of that journey, because that the way you start at the conservatoires is how you will carry on, and that thing of being around family, that sense of family that we've talked about, and it's not a competitive thing, it's just a difference. And the benchmarking that you've talked about as well, which we've both done as external examiners. I know Malcolm does that as well, and it's just basically making sure that everyone, like you say, is fit for purpose, but it's a critical friend. And because we all love the music so much and we love the students, so with that in mind, I'm wondering, Tommy, if I might start with you, do you think teaching conservatoires will change for good, or do you think we might go back to normal, whatever normal is? I've forgotten what normal is after 4.5 months.
Well, it's going to be the new normal. It's definitely not going to go back. I think we're going to take advantage of this new medium, because we want to have masterclasses from more great artists instead of, a little, because we've spent a lot of money on the working permit, the hotels and the air flight. So now we can have more, which is great. And we can also record it so we can review it. So that's going to be a great asset. And then we've got the technology. So, we've got these great harmonic tools like Mapping Tonal Harmony, which is a great program that you can use online, and you can blend that with the live thing. And I think it's definitely, it's changed for good, because a lot of the older musicians really haven't embraced the technology as much as the younger players. But there are a few boffins out there who've really, that I can mention, who are really far advanced, who are over 50 as well. Wow. And so it's definitely going to change, I think, for the good. It has to be positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what everyone here has got in common, is there's always that for the good, aspirational way of seeing things. Malcolm.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with you both there. I mean, whatever this new normal is, the people and Jeremy, Nick, and all our colleagues in jazz education, we're going to make the most of it, because that's all you can do, isn't it? We're all in this for the music, to try and help people to make better music and make music a bigger part of their lives. So, and the technology is awesome, and the rate of change is incredible. I'm going to school for 2 days next week, because they've set up some a new network that means that you can be in a room on this side of the school and that side of the school, and the audio, there's no latency on audio and video, and they want to test it out. So these things are all, these things that, if you imagine that even 20 years ago, you would have thought that's like something from Star Trek or something. It's amazing. And like Tommy says about the master classes, that enrichment, things that we've had over lockdown, so inspiring. Hearing we had Walter Smith come in, and it was so great. There's just one example, but you don't need to be in the room to be inspired by someone. And actually, in this medium that we're engaging in now, you get undivided attention, and that you're one of 20 people who's getting the attention of that person for an hour, and that is completely invaluable. I mean, I think lots of things that we've been doing for years will continue, of course. Live performance, people are craving going to concerts and going to theatre, and getting back to some sense of what we had before. But what we can do is add to it and make the most of any limitations which are forced upon us. And one point, if I may, make to any students coming into a conservatoire or returning, please do remember that all of the rules that we're following are set by the government. These are not rules that are set by the Guildhall School or the Royal Welsh or any of the separate conservatoires. We're all in the same boat. We're all desperate to make the experience as good as it possibly can be. But at the same time, we need to keep you and us safe. So if there is a rule and you get the documentation, you think, oh, that's going to be a drag, having such a class online, just remember, you know, it's like that everywhere in the world. And all we're trying to do is just make the most of the situation. And
I think that's true for what we're saying about getting the nonettes together. You know, that we've got, we're really lucky. We've got Olga, who's been on the guidance committee.
She's amazing. Olga Fitzroy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she's been working with us. So same thing, we would never dream of inviting anybody until we feel ourselves that's definitely safe. We had a recording session with Olga 10 days ago, you know, and it was great to be back, and then little moments of suddenly reminding us we weren't actually back.
Absolutely.
Different zone. Jamil, I'm just wondering, because one of the things that I'm very mindful of is that you know, the reason that I've asked everybody to come together and have this conversation is there's no way we can cover everything with all the courses in this amount of time. But it's really important, I feel, that the young musicians feel that they can come to everybody and they can ask these questions, and nobody's out to knock them down. Quite the opposite. Everyone's here to be part of their journey and to boost them up. So I wondered if you might say a few words about that in relation to next term and next academic year.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, yeah, it's with the process being laid out as it is, with your application and your deadlines, and you come for your auditions, and it can feel like those are the only points where you can get in touch and reach out. And it's great that we're having this conversation now, and you know, for the first time, I think, with us all together, kind of meeting the future students. But as colleagues have said today, you know, we're welcoming the next generations of musicians into a family, and it sounds cheesy to say that, but it really is a community that we're all a part of, and we all look out for each other. And that starts as soon as you, I think, make the decision to be a you know, a part of this music at whatever age, and you can get in touch with us. It's so easy, you know, you just get in touch with the institute, you know, via the website or whatever, and ask to speak to the head of department, and whatever questions that you've got, you know, before the audition, we'll gladly speak to you and chat to you about anything to make sure that you feel confident, and you know, as to what the next steps are. Is that what you meant?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Buy a pint next time I see you. So Paula, are you feeling optimistic about next term?
I'm always optimistic. You know, I'm a glass half full person. Is that the right way around? Mm-hmm. Yes, I think so. Yeah, no, genuinely. And, you know, as all my colleagues here have said, you know, there were some things that and some practices that we've adopted through necessity. But actually, my view is that some of those things have really enhanced our working processes. And I mean that very genuinely. So I think a lot of the ways in which we've changed doing, you know, maybe contextual work and so on, I would keep out of choice now. And I think it's given us all a bit of a sort of a kick to sort of examine what we do and not be afraid to change and embrace that change, because we're all having to do it. So yes, I'm determined to remain optimistic.
Well, 90% of NYJC Summer School students go on to do courses on the jazz conservatoire jazz courses. So I've been talking non-stop since 8:30, so I'm going to manage this bit. 90% go on to do the undergraduate. The 10% that don't tend to go on to do maths or something to do with physics, and then go on to do a postgraduate course, which is also something else to consider from all of the different colleges as well. And so I just really want to make sure that everybody that's been watching now feels comfortable about the fact that it's a fantastic family that we're all part of, and it's a family you'll retain and be part of forever, whether you're just starting out now, or you're one of the heads department, or whether you're an external examiner like ourselves. It's always part of the family. I'd like to bring another member of the family to the stage. Finally, Nick, thank you so much for your patience, lovey. I know we've overrun, but could you just please come and now give everybody the usual drill of, if somebody would like to support NYJC, how to support us in our work, because as everybody knows, We're really committed, and everybody that's on this conference call as well is committed to making sure that all young musicians get access to the music education, and that if they come from a background where they're struggling financially at the moment and could do with some help, there are scholarships at the conservatoires, and we have a bursary scheme to make sure a third of our youngsters at the moment are on bursary. And obviously COVID's impacted particularly on freelance parents who are freelancers. So Nick, over to you. If somebody would like to support our work, how do we go about that?
Fantastic. Yeah, if someone would like to support our work, it's visiting a brand new website at nationalyouthjazz.co.uk/donate. And if you'd like to keep up to date with all things NYJC by signing up to our newsletter, that is nationalyouthjazz.co.uk/sign up.
So as a nice surprise for everybody else, we're actually all going to be meeting down in southeast London. We've got 6 of the members of the summer school are actually going to be able to meet in person for dinner tonight. And I really wish I could invite all of you to come and join us, because I love all of you deeply, and you're so important to what we all do. You know, I've got a great connection with you personally, but also the way that I see the young musicians. So many of them come and do your courses, and each one of them, it feels really happy and comfortable and creative, and go on to do wonderful things. So for now, but not goodbye, a definite adieu. Thank you very much, Jamil.
Thank you. It's been great to see you all.
Thank you very much, Malcolm, lovey.
Thanks, Izzy. Thanks, Nick. Great job, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Paula.
Oil.
See you Monday, Tommy. I must download those links. See you then, lovey.
Hey, Monday. Brilliant host. Ciao.
Ciao. And Kathy, see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Indeed.
And I'm buying dinner, Nick. See you soon. And Jason and everybody else. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, folks.